welcome to another weekly analysis behind the news. I saw a meme this morning that pointed out that communist leader Fidel Castro died on the largest capitalistic day of the year, Black Friday. Can you taste that irony? Of course, some in the media are reporting on it as though they lost a hero. The CBS News headline has got it here. It says, Fidel Castro, David to America's Goliath. The Washington Post writes, Fidel Castro, African hero. The reaction from leaders around the globe has been overwhelmingly supportive of the communist dictator who preferred delivering justice via firing squads. President Obama's statement was just as sickly sweet and refused to condemn the actions of the communist thug and his brother who remains in power. Will anything change now that Fidel is dead? It's highly unlikely for the people of Cuba, but look to a frosting of relations under President Trump. Trump didn't pull any punches when he wrote, "The world marks the passing of a brutal dictator who oppressed his own people for nearly 6 decades. Fidel Castro's legacy is one of firing squads, theft, unimaginable suffering, poverty, and the denial of fundamental human rights." Fidel Castro had plenty of people fooled regarding his communist intentions when he launched his revolution. In fact, the New York Times was integral in getting favorable press, spreading lies, and gaining support for the fledgling movement. And the Eisenhower administration was just as culpable. American ambassador to Cuba, Earl Smith, said to the U.S. Senate in 1960, "Without the United States, Castro would not be in power today." And this comes from the New American magazine, from their article called Fidel Castro, Death of a Murderous Communist Dictator. Yet, even before Castro came to power, JBS founder Robert Welch had pegged him as a communist. At the founding meeting in December 1958, Mr. Welch said, "If you have the slightest doubt that Castro is a communist, don't. If he is successful, time will clearly reveal that he is an agent of the Kremlin." Castro's scorecard is not unlike many other communist regimes. Best estimates range from 100,000 to possibly 10 times greater than that regarding the number of Cubans killed. With a track record like that, it's no wonder that Cuban Americans are still celebrating his death. And speaking of track record, remember when the media, as well as Hillary Clinton, lambasted Trump when he said that he would need to wait and see if he could accept the election results? She actually conceded the election. Yet, she is now backing the recount petitions that Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein has filed in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, Stein has already raised more than $7 million to pay for these recounts. And these recounts are because Stein has some concerns about hacking, even though there is zero evidence to suggest it happened. Here in Wisconsin, the voting machines aren't even hooked up to the internet, so there's no way for them to be hacked via that route. But isn't the media coverage interesting on this? The media seems to be largely accepting and eagerly reporting on it, yet when Trump suggests there may be some voting shenanigans coming from 2 to 3 million illegal aliens, he gets ridiculed for it, and the media suggests there isn't any evidence to it. They don't say that about the recount efforts. We suggest you looking these up online to see for yourself. But one bright spot last week was that Trump announced the U.S. would pull out of the Trans-Pacific Partnerships on his first day in office. He suggested that bilateral agreements would need to be negotiated. We'll have to save any support or criticism for these until we see them. However, if these agreements deal only with trade instead of the globalist political and economic integration seen in these so-called free trade agreements, then he may be on the right path. Remember, it is up to us to hold our elected officials accountable. So stay informed and then inform others when it's time to act. And please don't think that we can just sit back and become spectators just because Republicans control both the legislative and the executive branches. Seasoned members know that this is the time when we have to be most vigilant. Republicans have a fondness for growing the federal government when they are in power. And again, it's up to us to see that officials play within the sandbox of constitutional limitations. Congress needs to reclaim those powers it has legislated to the president, and states need to stand up through nullification to reclaim powers that the federal government has usurped from them. And when we talk about holding officials accountable, we mean locally organizing, educating and recruiting community leaders, and going on the offensive to ensure that the Constitution is obeyed. So how do you do that? You join the John Birch Society. Because on your own, you're not able to make much of an impact. But working together nationally, the waves of influence are great. Visit jbs.org to learn more. Sign up for our e-newsletters, subscribe to our channels, and like and share this with family and friends. Until next week, we'll see you then.